She got invited to her ex's wedding as a cruel joke, but her grand entrance left everyone speechless. Please stay with me as I tell you my story. And please do not forget to support our channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing with your loved ones. Thank you. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's get back to our story. My name is Isabella Crawford, and I'm 36 years old. If you met me just a few years ago, you wouldn't believe the woman I've become today. Back then, I was unraveling, drowning in the aftermath of a marriage I thought would be my forever. My ex-husband, Daniel Richmond, walked out on me one rainy evening in late April, just like it was any other day. No hesitation, no remorse, just a simple cutting sentence. You used to be fun, Isabella. I need someone who brings the fire back. That someone was Vanessa Martinez, 10 years younger, fresh out of grad school, and already sinking her claws into the life I had helped build. I didn't cry. Not in front of him. I stood there in our kitchen in Miami, holding the casserole I'd made for dinner, watching the man I loved casually destroy the world we created. But the humiliation didn't end there. Daniel didn't just leave me. He paraded his affair through every social event in the city. Friends we once laughed with stopped answering calls. Our gym buddies pretended not to see me when I walked in. And worst of all, Vanessa moved into my old apartment, wearing my jewelry, posting pictures from my favorite spots in Costa Rica and Italy, smiling wide in dresses I had picked out. She wasn't just living my life, she was mocking it. And he loved every second of it. For weeks, I barely left my house. I stopped doing my hair. My phone rang unanswered. I couldn't even bring myself to check my emails. But one night, my best friend Carmen Rodriguez, my ride or die since we were roommates, at Florida State, knocked on my door with a bottle of wine and a look that said she wasn't about to let me die in silence. "Girl," she said, "this is not your downfall. This is your origin story." And that sentence sparked something. The next day, I joined a strength training class in South Beach. I started eating like my life depended on it because it did. I deleted old playlists and filled my speakers with Alicia Keys, Beyoncé, and Doja Cat. I stopped watching them and started watching me. I hired a trainer named Phoenix, a powerhouse who didn't care about my sob story. At first, I couldn't finish a single set, but within 5 months, I was lifting more than I ever thought possible. My waist snatched itself. My confidence returned. And one morning, walking past a boutique in Coral Gables, I caught my reflection in the glass and smiled. I wasn't just coming back, I was reinventing. But that wasn't enough. I needed more. I dusted off the business plan I'd written years ago, enrolled in an online business development program, and within a year, I'd launched my own marketing consultancy, Phoenix Rising. Clients started coming in from all over: tech startups, wellness brands, fashion houses. My passport began filling again. This time, not on his dime. Dubai, London, São Paulo, Singapore. And it was in Singapore at a networking dinner for global entrepreneurs that I met him, Marcus Thompson. He stood across the room in a deep navy suit, calm and sure like the world already belonged to him. He wasn't flashy, but you felt him when he entered. He was giving grown man energy with a side of CEO. When he introduced himself and I told him my name, he smiled and said, "Isabella? That name already sounds like a legacy." That night we talked about everything: music, politics, love, past betrayal. Unlike Daniel, Marcus wasn't interested in controlling the room. He was interested in me fully. And when he asked if he could take me out the next day, it didn't feel like a rebound. It felt like a beginning. Marcus didn't try to fix me. He honored me. He noticed how I held my breath when I was nervous, how I crossed my arms when I felt exposed. He never made me shrink to make space for him. And with him, I didn't feel like I had to prove anything. I could just be. Even though I had moved on, I still thought about Daniel and Vanessa from time to time. Not with anger, just a kind of detached curiosity. Last I heard, they had bought a penthouse in downtown Tampa and were doing the most to keep up appearances. Their social media feeds looked like a highlight reel from a luxury lifestyle documentary. But I knew Daniel. He needed applause to feel alive. One cool afternoon while running errands, I passed a boutique and saw a gown that literally took my breath away. It was deep sapphire blue silk with a backless cut and a train long enough to float. I tried it on without a reason, but something in me whispered, "You'll know when the time comes." I bought it. I didn't know what I'd wear it for, but I knew one day, I'd need to remind the world exactly who I was. That day would come sooner than expected, and it came in the form of an envelope. The envelope came on a Wednesday. I had just returned from a client pitch in New York and was sorting through a pile of mail on my kitchen counter. Most of it was predictable. Business cards, contracts, an invitation to a gallery opening. But one cream-colored envelope stood out. My heart paused. It was handwritten slanted letters, all caps. I recognized the writing immediately. Daniel. I stared at it for a moment, my fingers brushing the edge. My first instinct was to toss it in the trash unopened. The nerve of him sending me anything, but curiosity is a sly thing. It creeps in and settles before you know it. I slid a manicured nail beneath the flap and pulled out the card. The front was embossed in gold. "You are cordially invited to celebrate the union of Daniel Richmond and Vanessa Martinez." I blinked. There was more. Details of a lavish estate wedding in the Napa Valley wine country just outside San Francisco. 2 months from now. Venue known for hosting celebrity events. Every letter was polished and smug, but it was the handwritten note at the bottom that chilled the air around me. "Thought you'd want to see what real happiness looks like." He signed it with a winking, smiley face. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I just placed the card on the counter and stared at it like it might catch fire. The disrespect was surgical. He wanted me to feel small, powerless, forgotten. But that's where he made a critical mistake. He forgot who I had become. By the time Marcus got to my place that evening, the invitation was still sitting on the counter. He spotted it instantly. "What's this?" he asked, slipping off his jacket and loosening his cufflinks. I didn't respond immediately. I just handed him the card. He read it silently, then lifted an eyebrow and smirked. "So that's the game now?" "Oh, it's not an invitation," I said, folding my arms. "It's a performance. He wants to parade his new life in front of me like some kind of prize." Marcus studied me with that patient look of his. "And what do you want to do?" I inhaled slowly. The truth was already forming. "I want to walk into that wedding and remind him exactly who the hell he gave up." Marcus's grin widened. "Then let's give them a show they'll never forget." That night, over a bottle of Bordeaux, we laid the groundwork. No revenge theatrics, no messy confrontations. This wasn't about being loud. It was about being undeniable. It was about entering that space with such calm, poised power that the air would shift the moment we arrived. A few days later, Marcus booked appointments with a high-end designer friend in Los Angeles who owed him a favor. We flew up on a Friday afternoon and spent hours being styled like royalty. While Marcus was being measured for a double-breasted Italian tux, I browsed the evening gowns in a private showroom, and then I saw it. That sapphire blue dress from Miami's boutique, but elevated. Silk that shimmered like liquid starlight. A neckline bold but graceful. Sleeves that draped off the shoulder like poetry. I stepped into it and stared at my reflection. The woman in the mirror looked like vengeance dressed in grace. Marcus saw it too. "That's the one," he said, not blinking once. We left that day with tailored bags and secret smiles, ready for a moment that neither of us would ever forget. The weeks flew by. My business was thriving. Marcus and I were deep in prep for a brand conference in Dubai. but every so often I'd glance at the date circled on the wall calendar and smile. Carmen came by for brunch one Saturday, caught me looking, and asked, "What's got you grinning like that?" When I told her, she damn near spit out her mimosa. "Ooh, girl, this is going to be so sweet. You better get pictures. I need content." I laughed. No pictures, no posts. This one's just for me. 2 nights before the wedding, Marcus took me to a rooftop jazz lounge in San Diego. The saxophone kissed the air, and the city lights reflected off his skin like candlelight. "You nervous?" he asked over dinner. "Not at all," I said, wrapping his jacket around my shoulders. "I'm not going there for closure. I'm going there to deliver presents." He leaned across the table and took my hand. "Then we deliver it together." The morning of the wedding was pure gold. Sunlight poured through the penthouse windows, casting long, warm rays across the marble floor. My dress hung by the French doors, catching the light like it had been waiting for this moment its entire existence. Marcus's tuxedo was laid out beside it, polished shoes gleaming underneath. We were quiet that morning. Not because of nerves, but because silence has a way of speaking when confidence is thick in the air. By noon, we were on the road, gliding down the highway in a jet-black Bentley that Marcus had arranged just for the occasion. Leather interior, chilled champagne in the armrest cooler, a playlist of classic soul humming through the speakers. No rush. The estate came into view like a painting, rolling green hills, rustic wooden barns transformed into event spaces, and white roses lining the cobblestone driveway. Luxury cars parked outside, all arranged to frame a love story they believed was flawless. As we pulled up, a small group of guests exited a shuttle nearby. They paused mid-conversation, heads turning toward the Bentley as it came to a smooth stop. I could already see the curiosity sparking, people trying to make out the silhouettes behind the tinted glass. Marcus stepped out first, calm and commanding, buttoning his jacket with effortless poise. Then he came around to my door and opened it slowly. I stepped out. Time slowed. The gown spilled around me like flowing sapphire fire. My hair, styled into soft Hollywood waves, danced with the breeze. My earrings sparkled with every movement. My skin glowed. And the moment my heels hit the pavement, I felt the shift in the air. Eyes widened, elbows nudged, phones tilted subtly. A hush settled over the entryway like a whisper rippling across a still pond. I didn't look around. I didn't need to. The power of the moment wasn't in who noticed me. It was in who couldn't ignore me. We walked slowly, unbothered, deliberate. Every step said, "We didn't crash this. We were invited and we elevated it." At the entrance, a young wedding coordinator paused mid-sentence as we approached. "Hi, can I?" She began scanning her clipboard. Marcus offered a smooth nod. "We're here for Daniel and Vanessa's wedding." Her eyes flicked between us, and for a second, her brain visibly connected the names with the presents standing in front of her. "Oh, yes, of course. Please, right this way." Inside, the reception was already in motion. Light jazz flowed from a live trio in the corner. Guests mingled beneath a canopy of chandeliers and fairy lights. The entire place was dipped in white, gold, and ivory tones, pure opulence. And then Vanessa's voice, overly cheerful, cut through the music as she greeted guests by the head table. Her gown was stunning, sleek, modern, and clearly designer. But the moment she noticed the sudden change in atmosphere, her head turned. She saw me. Her smile faltered just for a breath, but I caught it. Then she turned sharply to whisper something to a bridesmaid, clutching Daniel's arm a little tighter. He turned mid-laugh, probably expecting another well-wisher. But then he saw me. The glass in his hand stopped moving. His expression cracked, like a facade slipping mid-performance. His jaw tightened. His eyes darted to Marcus. Then back to me. He blinked once, twice, as if I might vanish. But I didn't. I stood there glowing, thriving in silence. That was the game now. Marcus leaned over slightly, his breath warm against my ear. He looks like he just saw a ghost. I smiled faintly. A ghost in couture. We made our way through the crowd, acknowledging polite greetings, a few gasps, several murmured guesses about who we were. I didn't stop. I didn't wave. I just moved like I belonged because I did more than they ever expected. We reached the dance floor and Marcus did something masterful. He turned toward a nearby group of guests and in his smoothest voice said, "Good afternoon. I'm Marcus Thompson, and this amazing woman beside me is my fiancée, Isabella Crawford." The word fiancé cracked through the air like a dropped wine glass. Every nearby conversation stopped. Every eye turned. Someone at the edge of the room whispered, "Isabella Crawford, the marketing mogul." They didn't finish the sentence. They didn't have to. Vanessa's face twitched, barely noticeable to most, but I caught it. That subtle panic behind the eyes of someone who realized their triumph might be slipping. And Daniel, he still hadn't moved. Marcus's words hung in the air like thunder just before rain. A quiet rolled across the room, the kind of silence that only happens when something or someone shifts the energy. My fiancé, Isabella Crawford. Just 6 words, but that was all it took. A few guests glanced around awkwardly, unsure of how to respond. One woman near the bar dropped her phone. A man in a gray suit whispered something to his wife, who immediately turned to get a better look. And Daniel, he still hadn't blinked. His jaw had set into a clenched stone. One hand gripped his glass tighter than necessary. The other hovered awkwardly at his side, like he wasn't sure whether to approach or retreat. That was the thing about arrogance. It never prepares you for being outshined on your own stage. Vanessa moved first. Her heels clicked sharply against the wood floor as she crossed the room, all white satin and forced composure. "Isabella," she said, her voice light but paper thin. "What a surprise!" I met her eyes steady and soft. "Vanessa, you look lovely." It was true. Her gown was beautiful, but beauty without peace is just fabric on fear. And the flicker behind her eyes told me everything I needed to know. "Thank you," she said, tilting her head slightly. "You look different." "I am," I replied. "Very." Daniel finally found his voice, though it came out rough and a touch too loud. "Isabella, didn't think you'd actually come." I smiled gently, never looking away from him. "Well, you did invite me. Handwritten note and all. Would have felt rude not to accept." He blinked again, twice. "It's just I figured you'd probably be too busy to come." Marcus interjected with perfect timing, his voice warm but pointed. "We made time. It was important to support old acquaintances." He held out his hand for a shake, and after a hesitant beat, Daniel took it. The grip was brief, stiff. Tension radiated off Daniel's entire posture. There was no anger in my heart, no bitterness, just peace. And that peace was louder than any insult I could have hurled. We lingered for just long enough to be seen, felt, and whispered about. Marcus ordered us each a glass of champagne. We didn't toast. We didn't need to. Our presence was the celebration. People watched us closely now. Some nodded, some whispered, and others simply stared in that stunned silence reserved for those who defy every rumor that tried to bury them. From the corner of my eye, I saw Vanessa whispering to her sister. I didn't care what was said. This wasn't about them anymore. It was about me walking into a space where I had once been expected to crumble and proving that I had outgrown not just the pain, but the entire room. I sipped my champagne slowly, deliberately. Daniel's eyes kept darting back to me like a man, trying to solve a puzzle he no longer had the pieces for. And Marcus, he was unbothered. Cool. His hand resting gently on the small of my back, his smile never fading. He knew exactly what this was. Eventually, he looked at me and gave a slight nod, that quiet signal. "You ready?" I returned the nod. Graceful, poised. We turned toward the exit with unhurried confidence. Every head turned as we walked. No one whispered now. They didn't need to. Their silence screamed. Just as we reached the door, Marcus paused and glanced over his shoulder. "Best wishes to the bride and groom," he said smoothly, his voice carrying just far enough. Daniel gave a stiff nod. Vanessa's lips trembled into a tight smile. And then we stepped out into the crisp evening air. The Bentley was waiting. The door opened by the driver in a silent gesture of elegance. As I climbed in, I turned for one final look through the floor-to-ceiling glass panels. Inside, Daniel was still watching the space we had just left. And Vanessa. She was speaking urgently. One hand clenched around her bouquet like it was the last thing holding her together. I didn't wave. I didn't gloat. I simply smiled and disappeared behind the tinted glass. As the Bentley pulled away from the vineyard estate, I exhaled. Not the kind of breath that comes from exhaustion or nerves, but the kind that carries release, victory, closure. Not because I needed it, but because I created it. Marcus reached across the seat and took my hand, his fingers wrapping around, mine like silk over steel. "You were radiant," he said, his voice low. I turned to him, a soft smile playing at my lips. "No," I whispered. "We were." We didn't speak much on the drive back. We didn't need to. The silence between us was full, whole sacred. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed in my clutch. I didn't need to look to know who it was. Marcus gave me a look of gentle curiosity. I shook my head. "Not yet." The first message popped up on the screen. "Daniel. Isabella, can we talk?" I almost laughed. The man who once said I'd never find someone better was now texting me from his own wedding. I let the message sit. A second ping followed. "Daniel. I shouldn't have invited you. That was a mistake." A third minutes later. "You didn't have to show up like that. As if my existence had been a violation of his script. That was the thing about Daniel. He never wanted partnership. He wanted control, dressed in affection. And he didn't realize I had burned that costume years ago. By the time we arrived at our penthouse suite back in Los Angeles, 2 more messages had arrived. "Daniel. Seeing you tonight, I realized what I lost. Daniel. If there's still any part of you that remembers us." I didn't finish reading the rest. I deleted the entire thread because I wasn't that woman anymore, and I would never be again. Later that evening, I curled up on our balcony wrapped in one of Marcus's hoodies, a glass of wine in my hand as the city skyline blinked in the distance. Marcus came out, dropped a kiss on my shoulder, and slid into the chair beside me. "So, Monaco next week?" he asked, eyes twinkling. "Monaco," I said with a grin. "And after that, anywhere we feel like." I leaned my head against his shoulder. We didn't speak for a while. We didn't need to. I had walked into that wedding without a plan to destroy or prove anything, and yet I left having done both. Not with drama, not with rage, but with presence, with poise, with power. Because some victories aren't loud. They shimmer in the form of a gown that flows like water. A man who stands beside you without ever trying to overshadow you, and the ayagio, quiet truth that you are no longer who they thought you were. Daniel had tried to make me a footnote in his story, but in reality, he had always been just a chapter in mine. And that day, his wedding stopped being about him. It became the day he had to live forever with the memory of my arrival. The day he realized he had lost far more than he ever knew. Hi, beauties. This story teaches us that we should never waste time proving your worth to someone who chose to leave you behind. Instead, take all that energy and invest it into becoming the version of yourself that leaves no room for regrets, only awe, success, self-respect, and genuine love. They echo louder than any revenge speech. And sometimes the best way to win is to outgrow everything they thought you'd never rise from. If your ex invited you to their wedding, what would you do? Would you ignore it, show up like a queen, or crash it? Tell me in the comments below. And if this story moved you, hit that like, smash that subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that blooming is the best kind of revenge. Because somewhere out there, a Daniel is planning a wedding, and an Isabella, she's planning her entrance. Until next time.